Hello all, welcome to Paritranaya. In this class, we shall discuss about the Charter Act of 1853, also a very important act from exam point of view. So here, until this Charter Act of 1853, so there existed Governor General's Council. Governor General's Council. So that Governor General's Council can be compared to present Council of Ministers. Present Council of Ministers. So now at that time there did not exist a parliament and a council of ministers, two different separate bodies, but there existed just one body like Council of Ministers. So the Council of Ministers themselves, they used to do all the job, making laws also and also implementing them. But through Charter Act of 1853, so there was a division of power. So what was the division of power? So Governor General's Council, it was split into two parts. So one was called as Executive Council and other one is called Legislative Council. So now we cannot make an exact comparison to the present day scenario, but just to make our understanding easier, what we can do is this Executive Council, it can be compared to present Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister. And the Legislative Council which prevailed at that time, it can be compared to modern day or present day Lok Sabha, or it can also be compared to Raj Sabha, or it can also be compared to Parliament. Okay, Parliament. So we all know that Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha, they are involved in making laws, or in general we refer to them as Parliament. So Parliament is involved in making laws. Whereas when it comes to Council of Ministers, or we call them as even executive, so they are involved in what? Implementing these laws. Okay, implementing these laws. So first time this separation happened through Charter Act of 1853, a very important development. Sorry. So 6 new members called legislative councillors, so they were added. So here to this legislative council, 6 members were added and a separate body was formed, which was called as what? Indian Central Legislative Council. Indian Central Legislative Council. So it functioned as a mini parliament. So we have already seen about the various roles played by parliament. So different functions performed by parliament. For example, it may be like using motions, it may be using the question hour. So such kind of functions which the parliament performs. So similar kind of functions were performed by Indian Legislative Council. Indian Legislative Council. So very important development. So legislation for the first time treated as a special function. So as I mentioned, so until now there was no special provision associated with legislation and it was not treated as a separate function. So now legislation, making laws, was treated as a separate function, and they also understood that it requires a special machinery. Okay, machinery. So an important development associated with Charter Act of 1853. Now apart from that, we already seen this. That previously also an attempt was made to make the competition for civil servants open. It means in order to become an IAS officer, present day we have IAS officers, before we used to call them as Indian Civil Service Officers. So there was an exam for it. So previously Indians were debarred. So and attempts were made to open it to Indians as well, but previous attempts had failed. But in this act, again an attempt was made and it was successful. It means Indians could compete in the examination to become civil servants. Okay, again a very important development. And in order to give shape to it, a committee was constituted under the leadership of Macaulay. So again, a very important development. Okay, so Macaulay committee is also associated with what? Throwing open of competition for the examination of civil servants for Indians also. Okay, for Indians also, a very important development. Accordingly, Macaulay Committee on Civil Services was appointed in 1854. Next, it extended companies rule. Again, a very important point. Now, previously, we have come across various acts. For example, it may be Pitt's India Act or it may be Charter Act of 1833. So, through every act, the company's rule in India was extended. Okay, so company was ruling in India on behalf of Britain government. So, whenever a new law was brought, a new act was brought, they used to say for how many years East India Company should rule India. So they used to specify period. So whether it should continue ruling for another 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. But now first time in 1853 Charter Act, they did not specify a particular period. Means for how long they should rule India. So they did not specify. Now no specification was present as part of the Charter Act of 1853. So it indicated that Britain government, it was ready to remove East India Company from the administration of India at any time, and directly it wanted to rule India. So it can happen at any point of time in the future. So again, a very important development. Means anytime termination of what? Termination of East India Company from its power of ruling India. Okay. So again, this is a very important development. So from PLIM's point of view, they may ask by framing a statement like, through which of the following acts was the extension period not specified for the East India Company? So it is Charter Act of 1853. Again, a very important development. Next, local representation in the Indian Legislative Council. This is also a very important point. So here we understood that a separate Governor General's Legislative Council was created, and as I mentioned, it can be compared to either Lok Sabha or present day Raj Sabha or Parliament in general. So to make our discussions easier, I'll compare it to modern day or present day Rajya Sabha. Okay, Raj Sabha. So this Raj Sabha at that time, it consisted of 6 members. 6 members. Now among these 6 members, 4 members they came from various different provinces. So which are those provinces? One is Madras, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra. So one person from Madras, one person from Bombay, one person from Bengal, and one person from Agra. So there was a representation in the Central Legislative Council from these provinces as well. So that's why we have indicated here. So local representation in the Indian, that is Central Legislative Council. So this provision was also introduced through Charter Act of 1853. So again, this is also very important point from exam point of view. So they may frame a statement like, through which of the following acts was a provision made wherein local representation in the Central Legislative Council was possible. So it was through Charter Act of 1853. So among the 6 new legislative members, so 4 were appointed by the provincial government. So the local Madras government used to send their one representative to Central Legislative Council. Similarly, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra governments, so they used to send their representatives to Central Legislative Council. Again, a very important development. Okay, so to understand these things easily and to retain them, so we can compare them to what modern system or the present day system. So here, if you make a comparison with Raj Sabha, it will be easy to remember. Why? Because present day in Raj Sabha, we have representation from different states. So if we take Karnataka as an example, we know that from 12 members are represented from Karnataka in Raj Sabha. Similarly, different states have different representation. So with the help of this analogy, this information can be retained very easily. So this was about the Charter Act of 1853. Similarly, in the subsequent classes, we shall look into the other acts as part of the evolution of the Constitution. For all our further updates, subscribe to our channel and hit on the bell icon. Thank you.